Brew Strong is brought to you by morebeer.com, where a man can brew like a man.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think. Jamil and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters. It's another
hey, everybody.
Fine episode of Brew Strong here with Jamil Zainasheff, myself, and my good
John
buddy
Palmer.
John Palmer.
Yeah,
and,
it just doesn't work, does it?
We're 1/3 of the way into our Watergenza. It's 3 shows back to back, if you're listening live, of nothing but talking about how to take your water from just being you open the tap and put it in your beer to really crafting and making the right water to make all of your beers that much better. To take something from just a really good beer to outstanding. The very subtle differences when, let's say, you're in competition and you are head-to-head with another beer. For example, you both got Munich Helles and there's nothing but Pilsner malt in both of them. The guy that's got the right kind of water profile is probably going to edge out other things being equal. He's going to edge out and be the winner. So. Yep. You want to pay attention to that. So that's what we're doing for 3 full hours of Watergenza. And speaking of which, as far as competition goes, the NHC, the National Homebrew Competition, is underway as we speak. And the conference is coming up, and our good sponsor, morebeer.com, and the folks at More Beer, they've got that Concord location, and they're kind enough to receive all those entries for us. So if you're entering in the West region, all those are going down there to the Concord store, and rather than shipping it, you might want to drive them down there and check out the store, pick up a few items from More Beer, or go online, morebeer.com, and thank them for sponsoring the show. All right. So, last show we kind of covered where the basics of the components of water, things, levels of various minerals that you would want in the water, and how they affect kind of the flavors of the beer. Now, the thing that I think is lost or very difficult for a lot of people is, all right, now, John, I'm starting to understand exactly why I would want to do this and some of the things that are in there that I can't see. And now, how do I go about changing the water to match this? Given, let's say, I do know what my water is and I do know where I want to get going, how do you adjust it? What adjustments do you make? Do I buy a tablet and throw it in the water, or how do you go about it?
Yeah, it all depends on what you're starting with. And to recap the last show a little bit, we talked about the components in the water: the calcium, magnesium, bicarbonate, sulfate, sodium, chloride. One thing we didn't really mention was the water pH. And the reason I didn't mention it is because it doesn't really matter. But how? What do you mean? Well,
tell me, Mr. Wizard.
The water pH is a balance. It's a quantization of the hydroxide ions to the hydrogen ions and so on and so on. But you can look at it as a balance, like on a seesaw, of your positive ions to your negative ions. And you can have 2 kindergartners on that seesaw, or you can have 2 gorillas, and you can have the same pH. So you can see where, when it comes to brewing, when you're trying to say what water am I starting out with, there's a big difference between starting out with two, toddlers on the seesaw and starting out with two gorillas. So water pH doesn't make much difference. It goes back to residual alkalinity. It's balancing the triangle of water hardness, water alkalinity, and your grain bill. That those three things balance to form the mash pH, and that drives the beer pH and your flavor expression. So when we talk about water adjustment, we're talking about influencing that balance. And you can do that by adding minerals such as calcium sulfate, gypsum, calcium carbonate, chalk. You can also do it by adding acids. Different acids that people use are lactic acid. Now that one has a definite flavor, so you don't always want to use lots of lactic acid because you'll start tasting it unless that goes with the style. An acid that can be added, but it's maybe hard to find exactly food grade acid, is hydrochloric acid, or otherwise known as muriatic acid that people put in their swimming pools. But I think, if you're only adding a couple of milliliters to a full batch of beer, very little health risk involved.
John thinks it probably may not exactly kill you.
Right. Sulfuric acid would be a great one.
Yeah.
That would just be adding hydrogen ions and sulfate. I mean, sulfate is, appropriate in many beer styles.
Well, how about the one used in soda, the phosphoric acid?
Phosphoric acid is good. It has a very neutral flavor. The issue is that when you put phosphoric acid into a mash or a wort, it precipitates calcium phosphate. And so when you add phosphoric acid, you're changing the playing field. You're changing your water hardness directly by precipitating out some of the calcium that had kind of set up your original triangle. Now, if you've got good pH test papers and or a pH meter, and you can monitor the pH shift, accurately while you're doing this, you can still use phosphoric acid, but you just need to be aware that it is changing the playing field.
So just a minute here. Hold your horses. Now,
okay.
You were saying that pH doesn't matter. But
water pH doesn't.
Should we, so if you make your proper mineral adjustments, your water adjustments as far as additions to your water, you shouldn't need to worry about the pH of the mash, right?
Right.
But you should still have or you're saying you don't worry about the water pH, because once you've got everything adjusted, the mash pH will turn out right. But you're still going to want to verify your mash pH with a meter or papers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to want to double check that. Because when it comes to water adjustment, we're using models. We're using what are essentially linear models to predict the outcome. And nature isn't linear. It usually has a hump. So you do want to be still monitor your mash pH when you're doing these adjustments. But you can use minerals. You can use calcium chloride, calcium sulfate, calcium carbonate, magnesium sulfate or Epsom salts, baking soda, sodium chloride, table salt. All these can be used to influence the mineral content of the water.
Okay, so you're saying we could use acid to adjust pH, or we can use these salts, but which is better? I mean, if I've got a choice of using lactic acid or some salts, everything else being equal, what's better?
If you want to get to Pittsburgh, what's better, a train or plane?
Well, it depends.
Yeah, it depends. It depends, on how you want to get there and what experience you're looking for. Mm-hmm. I kind of think from a original, brewing city kind of, development of the style of the beers that. Chances are they probably didn't directly add acid to the mash the first thing, as they were developing a style. They were probably working with the local water, which probably had a mineral profile similar to what we're trying to emulate. So I kind of lean towards the salt end to start with.
What about like the Germans with their acid rest or their acid malts?
And the lime additions to take to lower the bicarbonates. Yeah, all that is very true. So it depends. It depends on the particular situation. Right. I tend to try the salt aspect first. Right. Some styles are, depending on what you're starting with, you may not be able to get there effectively from just salt additions. You may need acid to help.
It depends on what your water is like, and the water that you're trying to target for whatever batch of beer you're brewing. You may need to. You may be fairly close, or you may be past that goal a little bit, and you use some acid to just adjust down and call it close enough, or you're way past it, and you need to start with deionized water, or at least use some distilled or deionized or RO water to dilute your water down, or and then build back up with salts. So it kind of depends on where you're starting and what your target is what you're saying.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, you need to understand how that triangle appears before you start moving things around, and the style of beer they're trying to do too is one corner of that. Now, if you I keep losing my train of thought here. Train keeps leaving the station.
You should have taken the plane.
Yeah, exactly. No, what I was going to say was...
Well, here's a question for you. So you mentioned, classic brewing cities, and
there we go.
Because of the salts and things like that, you would think the salts would be a better way to emulate that brewing city. But do you always want to emulate a classic brewing city? Whatever beer you're brewing, you want to say, well, this is a beer that was brewed in Burton-on-Trent, so I need the water of Burton-on-Trent. I mean, do you just automatically go with that, or?
No, you don't. And thank you. That was the point I was looking for. Water profiles, as you find them published on the web, on the internet, and so on, they're annual averages. They're a snapshot in time. They may or may not reflect the actual water that the brewer is brewing with, or what the brewer did to that water to actually brew the style. It's a target. It's an indicator. And let's go back to residual alkalinity. What we've said about residual alkalinity is that it's the big picture. When you look at your water hardness and your alkalinity and your malt bill for a particular style, you want that mash pH to come out, at the optimum, in the 5.2, 5.4 range. And to drive the beer pH, the final beer pH, to get that in the optimum range, to get the true expression of that beer's flavor. And I think residual alkalinity dominates. That's your first cut. When you're trying to manipulate your water, worry about getting the residual alkalinity right first. Then, if you look at that profile that you've generated compared to, say, the classic city for that style or that you're trying to emulate, if you're close on the sulfate, that's good enough. If you're close on the chloride, that's good enough. But if you, on the other hand, if you've targeted the RA and your chloride to sulfate ratio is reversed, compared to the city you're trying to, emulate in the beer style you're trying to brew. Let's say it's a Munich Helles, where you're trying to have a less bitter, maltier balance in that beer. And the mineral additions that you've made to reach the residual alkalinity targeted for that beer color is high in sulfate, then, your beer isn't going to taste right. So, while you want to look at the residual alkalinity first, you do want to look at your flavor minerals, your sodium, chloride, and sulfate, and particularly your chloride to sulfate ratio second. And make sure that is also targeting the beer style.
So it's not necessarily the total amount of sulfate, and a lot of people, I think, go with the total amount of sulfate, and they look at just that and think, well, that's going to give me a great IPA because I got all this sulfate in there, and they go to some certain extreme. And what you're saying is, maybe more importantly, the ratio between the chloride to the sulfate. Even if your total sulfate is lower than what the target city is, as long as your ratio is appropriate, that might actually produce a better flavor beer than if you were to try and bump the whole thing up.
That's right. In fact, malting and brewing science or the technology of brewing by Kuhns, they all state that where the chloride to sulfate ratio appears to be relatively independent of total amounts. It's the ratio of the two. So, if you're looking at Burton-on-Trent, or if you're looking at Munich or looking at Dortmund, look at the approximate chloride to sulfite ratio that you're seeing there, and target that ratio more than necessarily the total amounts of each mineral. That's you're going, and if you hit the RA, the residual alkalinity, and that ratio, I'd say you're 99% of the way there.
Well, I think that's a very important point because traditionally, on the lore of the internet, it's always, you need to have a certain amount, so dump in until you reach this amount because that's what's important. That's what the water in Burton-on-Trent is, and or that's what the water in Dortmund is. And I think people go to the extreme, and I think that's one of the dangers, right? That's one of the potential problems with trying to adjust your water.
That's right.
You can overdo it, right?
You easily can overdo it. Yeah, just like in cooking, too much of one seasoning or the whole, if you keep balancing the seasonings and those get higher and higher, pretty soon all you taste is seasoning, you don't taste the food. Same with the beer. You want to, adjust in moderation. You're looking for, relativity. You're looking for flavor relativity, being chloride and sulfate and the other minerals. Mm-hmm. But, like I said, but pH, if you get the pH right, then the flavors will be expressed correctly.
Mm-hmm. So pH, which is residual alkalinity versus your grain bill. If you have more dark malts, they tend to be more acidic. Is that correct?
That's right. And that kind of brings us to the tools that we use for calculating residual alkalinity. Perhaps many of you out there are familiar with my nomograph in my book. And Jamil, I know you've seen it.
How to Brew. You can actually buy it, signed copies in the Brewing Network store. If you get a chance, it's an excellent book. It's one of my favorites. I think it's got information in there for everybody, from beginner to advanced. To expert brewer, you're going to find something in there that you did not know, or you're going to find some handy charts, well worth the price. And if you buy from thebrewingnetwork.com, it's going to help out the Brewing Network.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Just a little plug in there for the Brewing Network.
Thank you. So
the nomograph in there, I've seen it. And, I have a pretty good idea how to use it, but I'm not sure it's that apparent to most of the folks listening. It looks like science. It looks like a slide rule. It looks like something some engineering geek would come up with and put in the back of his book.
That's probably a very fair statement.
Right. So since a lot of brewers are more artists and along those lines, there's as many artists as there are scientists in brewing, I think.
That's true.
Maybe for the artists out there that aren't familiar with the slide rule or the nomograph, maybe you can kind of give a rundown how to use that thing.
Sure. Since I'm going to be rambling on pretty good, why don't we take a quick break, and I'll dive into it when we get back.
That sounds good. Good time to take a short break, pay some bills here, and we'll be back with the geeky stuff right after this.
brew strong. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, Push, the new brewery's looking good.
Thanks, Finn. Piece by piece.
Well, let's fire her up. Whoa! Is that a new kettle?
Yeah, just got it brand new, but paid half price.
What? And that blade scale?
40% off.
The new tap handle?
$5 instead of $13. Got a new regulator for the brew stand, too, but $5 instead of $25.
Dude, where are you stealing all this stuff from?
Where else? The More Beer deal of the day.
Announcing the Beer, Beer, and More Beer deal of the day. Every day, a new fantastic deal from big items to small that will blow you away. Boil kettles, carboy carriers, sterile siphon starters, digital timers. Watch morebeer.com every day for a new deal, and you just might find the item you've been waiting for at a price you cannot believe. Hurry, because stock is limited on most items.
And that sweet Guinness cap? Let me guess.
The More Beer deal of the day.
Yeah, I knew it. Come on, let's brew something. Find the More Beer deal of the day at morebeer.com. Celebrity voices impersonated.
Downtown Joe's, located in the historic Oberon building in beautiful downtown Napa, California, offers an award-winning brew pub experience from 8:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day. For 15 years at the corner of 2nd and Main, Downtown Joe's has been voted Best Night Spot 7 times and Best Brew Pub for the last 4 years in a row. Brewmaster Colin Kaminsky's handcrafted ales, like his Tail Wagon Amber Ale and Double Secret Probation IPA, are the perfect accent to riverside dining, live music, and a relaxing outdoor patio. Don't miss the Beer of the Month, special rotating taps, and the BN Army Member Special. Wear your BN gear, get 10% off your beer. Visit downtownjoes.com to make reservations, peruse their extensive calendar of events, or just read more about their fantastic beers. Come enjoy the fine beer, food, and music. Downtown Joe's, the award-winning brew pub where you'll feel at home.
White Labs, your source for maltose mowing monsters, announces the White Labs Platinum lineup for 2009. Looking for out-of-the-ordinary yeast to make the best beer possible? The Platinum strains from White Labs are only available for a limited time and make your homebrews stand out. Through February, find Australian Ale, Essex Ale, and Dusseldorf Alt yeast. March and April, it's Nottingham Ale, Abbey 4, and Mexican Lager yeast. And May through June, don't miss Premium Bitter Ale, Belgian Wit 2, and Belgian Bastogne Ale yeast. Keep up with all the great yeasts in the White Labs Platinum program at whitelabs.com, where you can also join the White Labs Customer Club. Brew with the freshest and most unique yeast with the White Labs 2009 Platinum strains. White Labs. It's all in the vial.
Hilo, what's it feel like?
Take awesome and multiply it by 2.
Yeah!
Spraying live beer radio all over your face.
Can't get any better than this, baby.
It's the Brewing Network. Back to your hosts, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. Putting the testicles in technical. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back in our water Ganza. And John, I'm ready for you to give me the testicles on your nomograph here.
Yeah, well,
put the technical in the nomograph. You kind of break that down for us. How you'd use that page number in the book, all that stuff.
Yeah,
start from the basics.
Like we've been talking about, residual alkalinity, it's a balance of hardness to alkalinity, and it works with your malt bill, your malt color, kind of drive the whole balance thing. So what the nomograph is designed to do is allow you to take your calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity numbers from your water analysis report from your city and draw a line through those to determine kind of what beer color you should be brewing for that water. And the way it does it, there's a calcium-magnesium scale on the bottom, an alkalinity scale where you can use either bicarbonate or total alkalinity as calcium carbonate, and scale in the middle. And you draw a line through there, and you come up on the residual alkalinity scale as calcium carbonate across the top. And above that is a color bar that has kind of gradations from pale yellow on the left side to dark brown on the right side. And you'll see about in the orange area there's the RA value is 0. So what you're saying there is that the hardness and the alkalinity of the water balance each other for kind of typical beer colors, from pale gold into light amber and kind of to a deep amber. That's a residual alkalinity level of 0. As you go to darker colors, you're going to want more residual alkalinity to help balance the acidity of the dark malts.
Now, so for most water municipalities in the U.S., don't they try and reach some sort of average balance of residual alkalinity and hardness, and at least in some sort of general range, so it's not at the wild extremes? Don't they do that in order to kind of protect the pipes and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, they'll often add lime to the water, some calcium hydroxide, to drive the pH up a little bit. Generally, municipal water supplies are in a pH of 7 to like 8.5. In some cases, you'll get them up to 9, but generally, 7.5 to 8.5 is your average, what you'll see. And yeah, they'll take a water source out of the ground, and they'll adjust the pH of that water to that range, 7.5 to 8.5, because it doesn't attack copper. It won't have the more acidic the water, it'll start leaching copper off the pipes, and you'll see it as blue rings in your bathtub and stuff. But other than that, they don't do much.
So for a lot of water municipalities, there's a kind of a general range of colors of beer that would work out right, like you're saying. That
yeah, generally the amber, the light amber to dark amber is, those are the alkalinity of that water is going to lend itself to that color of malt and that color of grain bill, and the residual alkalinity to and the mash pH and the beer pH will all work out. So, and from a homebrew instruction point of view, when you're talking to many brewers and they're going to do their first all grain, they're typically doing a pale ale or a brown ale or something like that. Sometimes they're doing stouts too. But you just say, yeah, don't worry about your water. It's probably okay. It's good enough. It'll work.
Right.
And it will work. Brewing's a very robust process, and it'll work. But when you start, really trying to target a particular style of beer, that's when you want to understand how well it's working and how it could be a little different.
Now, I think the nomograph is great, and it's a great tool, but isn't there, it's not a hard and fast rule, right? Because the color of a beer can be comprised of different things. So there's different ways to get that color, with whether it be kind of the caramel malts, let's say, and lower Lovibond stuff, or if you're going more with a bunch of it would take a couple pounds of caramel malts, or it would take an ounce of black patent in order to get a similar kind of color range. And so doesn't that kind of throw it off a little bit?
It does. The nomograph is arm waving at its finest. I guess I should say, I and AJ DeLange, we all kind of generalized what beer style worked with a certain range of residual alkalinity from, looking at reports of classic brewing cities and the beers that used to be brewed there and so on. I mean, it's all generalization, but fortunately it does hold pretty well. But yeah, the different malts that you use have a big effect. Bob Hansen of Breeze did a neat presentation last year about this time at the Craft Brewers Conference, where he showed that the whole malt color scale, the degrees SRM, can be it's malt dependent. I mean, you can take some Crystal 60 and some Black Patent malt and arrive at the same degrees SRM value. I mean, you can make a 20 SRM color beer with either malt. The instrument will register that they're the exact same color, but to look at them visually, one's a deep amber and one's a dark brown. The machine reads them both the same because it actually works by the amount of light absorption. So I mean, it turns out there's really two classes of malt. There's your toasted malts, and then there's your roasted malts. Your toasted malts are anything from base malt up through your crystals. Your roasted malts are brown malt, chocolate malt, black malt, Black Patent, roast barley, all those ones. There's a kind of a dividing line of around 325 degrees where these malts are kilned at that makes the difference in the Maillard reactions that occur and the kinds of buffering and acidity that each malt generates. So there's a lot more work to be done as far as being able to plug all these values into a spreadsheet and say, my mash pH is going to be exactly this. We're not there yet. We're still at the arm waving stage. But I've taken the nomograph and that generalization, and I've kind of made it into a spreadsheet, which is on my website, howtobrew.com. You and I have talked about taking that from a spreadsheet and making it into more of a Flash application.
Yeah, I still need to do that. I'm lazy.
Me too.
I'm really busy. Let me put it that way. I really want to do it. I just get the time.
Yeah. But what you do is, you especially using the spreadsheet, you can say, well, if I add 5 grams of calcium sulfate to my water, what does that do to the residual alkalinity, and what does that addition do to my sulfate to chloride ratio? And so using a spreadsheet and other brewing software too, you can start manipulating your water, precisely with precise amounts of mineral additions or acid additions to manipulate that mash pH and the beer pH.
Well, and so once you have an idea of what you want to adjust based on the water you're starting with, and the recipe you are going to brew, and the kind of malts in there and all that, how do you go about adjusting? Do you y'all just again dump in a tablet somewhere, or what's the physical makeup of the stuff that you're adding, and what point in the brewing process do you add that?
Good question. There's a lot of, you look at a classic brewing, that list of classic brewing cities and their profiles, their waters. If you go in the lab and try to take, a liter distilled water and add, teaspoon of this salt and a teaspoon of that salt to try to make up that profile, you're going to end up with...
Never works out, huh?
You end up with a little pile of salt on the bottom of the beaker.
Yep.
They don't dissolve. Nature has that advantage of time to gradually build up these concentrations that we in the lab, don't have the luxury
to wear away stones and what have you in the mountains before it gets to the tap.
Yeah. So what you can do though is you can add these minerals, these salts, directly to the mash. So you basically you dough in with your water, whether it's distilled or your own your own tap water, and you in doing so you drop the pH from 7, 8, even 9. You drop that down into the 5 to 6 range. And when you do that, these minerals are now soluble, and they will dissolve in, and they will react with the the phosphates and the malt and so on. The whole chemical system will start working together and drive the residual alkalinity chemistry to get down into the 5.2 to 5.4 pH range. And so if you add your salts directly to the mash and stir them in, then to use pH paper or pH meter to check your mash. That's the way to do it.
How long does it take from adding your mineral salts to it having the effect and kind of being universal throughout the mash? You scatter them on there, and then you stir it in, and then how long before you check your pH?
5 to 15 minutes. If you should see an effect within 5 minutes, and you'll definitely see an effect by 15 minutes.
It'll be stable by 15 minutes.
Yeah, or at least near stable. I mean, the pH. If you were to monitor that mash with a pH meter, you'd probably see it gradually drift by a tenth. With time, if you let it keep going. I mean,
and it changes as the water solubilizes a lot of the components of the malts and frees up, and the enzymes start reacting or taking action, and all that over time starts having an effect.
That's right. Yeah. Mainly, I mean, you want to use these tools as just tools. You want to take a look at a reading, at a data point, and kind of make your best guess from there. I mean, you don't want to live your life by the pH meter, but you do want to use it as a tool to gauge what you do next. And same way with mashing. I mean, you can't do it all science. You got to have the art with it too. You've got to look at that mash and observe how it's going and taste it, or and apply the art to brewing as well as the science.
Mm-hmm.
But
I got a question for you. All right, so we've been doing this show, Can You Brew It? The Jamil Show, Can You Brew It? And where we try and clone commercial beers that people have requested. They send an email into canyoubrewit@thebrewingnetwork.com, and then Tasty and I, we interview the brewers, or we do research on the internet, or whatever it takes to do it, and then we brew the beers multiple times until we get a clone that is exactly, or that will pass as the beer, the commercial example. Mm-hmm. Well, we did an interview with Lagunitas recently. We're going to have a Lagunitas extravaganza coming up, and one of my tasks was to brew Lagunitas IPA. Well, I didn't have any gypsum. I recently moved, and at the new estate, I could not find the gypsum. It's too big a place. I just couldn't find it. It's somewhere in the 9-car garage. So I'm, I'm like, what the heck? I need to brew. I need to get this thing done. The show's coming up. Got to get it done. So I start brewing. I called Nick to see if he had any gypsum, and he ran some out to me on his way somewhere else. But by that time, I'd already doughed in. Mash was pretty much done by the time he got there. I was already, running off into the kettle. So I went ahead and tossed the gypsum into the boil kettle. Mm-hmm. Now, how does that affect things? Is the purpose of the gypsum, the sulfates, to get the right balance for the hoppiness and the bitterness? Is that where it really comes into play? Should I have added it to the mash? My pH in the mash was okay. I adjusted with lactic acid. I got it to the right point, but I had to wait until the boil to add that sulfate there. So how did what I do impact what I was trying to achieve?
Well, you've hit on the two reasons for doing water adjustments. One is to get the mash pH right, to get the eventual beer pH right. The other is for flavor, to get that chloride to sulfate ratio right. So by adding the gypsum in the boil, you're working on the flavor aspect. You're working on that chloride to sulfite ratio. Now, you've already done the mash, and the effect of the calcium to drive the pH is going to be, it's not needed. But I think it will still have some effect. Now, if depending on how much lactic you had to add and how much gypsum you added, you could end up driving the final beer pH even lower than it would have been with just the gypsum alone. You'll have to wait and see. Chances are, I doubt it'll have that much effect. But yeah, those are the two places where it's easy to add salts. You can add them to the mash. And what I didn't mention was that you want to add salts to the mash based on the volume of water in the mash at the time. Or especially if you're doing a single infusion, that makes it easy. You've got, say, 10 pounds of grain and 4 gallons of water in there, and that's all the water that's going to be in there. And so you add 4 gallons worth of salts to drive the residual alkalinity and eventual pH of that mash. Now, if you're sparging, it's hard to do mineral adjustments to sparge water because they won't dissolve generally. There's a couple like calcium chloride that will dissolve. So if you're brewing, say, a German lager and relying on calcium chloride to drive your mash pH, then you could put that same concentration in your sparge water and just keep going with it.
But they will dissolve more readily in the wort in the boil kettle, right?
That's
because
right.
Of the other compounds that are in there.
Yeah. So what I typically do is I'll add salts for the mash based on the mash volume. I'll not worry about the sparge, or I'll sparge with, say, distilled water. Fortunately, where I live, I don't have highly alkaline water, so it's not going to really change the mash pH and the runnings pH that much during the sparge. Versus, say, someone that lives in Houston, Texas, where they have water that has much higher alkalinity. Often what they'll do is they'll add enough acid to their sparge water to drop the pH of the water down to about 6, kind of take the edge off, and avoid running the mash pH up much during the sparge. But anyway, you can add it. You can add it to the mash, skip the sparge, and then add enough salts to the boil kettle to make up for that volume of water that you sparged with. So you end up with a net volume that has the concentration of minerals that your calculations had targeted.
Okay, so let's take a short break, and when we get back, let's get into the what you're saying here is you need to calculate for both the sparge and the mash then, and the total salts is what you want. Back after this.
Keep your carboy cap on. This is Brew Strong. We'll be right back.
Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Cut hours off your brewing sessions by using one of their 11 varieties of famous Williams malt extract. Their Williams German Pils is mashed with pure German Moravian 2-row barley malt for a light blonde color and malty crispness you just can't get from other extracts. Or check out their unique fermenters, draft beer equipment, bottling aids, and more. They even have their own line of precision hydrometers. Go to williamsbrewing.com to browse their vast selection and enter promo code BREW at the order checkout for $5 off your next order over $50. Orders placed by 3 p.m. ship the same day. Again, go to williamsbrewing.com and enter promo code BREW at checkout for $5 off your next order. Brewing is easy, the Williams way.
Nico, listen, our lawyers said that we had to do this for 1 hour, and after this, we don't have to talk to each other for 3 more months to the next meeting.
Kids, come on, let's get out of here.
I'm supposed to have more lines. I'm the professional. Hey, it's Sully.
And I'm Nico.
And we opened the 21st Amendment 9 years ago at 563 2nd Street in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park, to make great beer and have a great time doing it.
That's right, because to us, the 21st Amendment is more than just the right to make beer. It's the right to experiment, to be innovative, and just do things differently. And so now, we're putting our craft beer in cans.
That's right, cans. You can find our world-famous Hell or High Watermelon Wheat Beer and Brew Free or Die IPA throughout California and Alaska.
And now it's also available on draft at select accounts in the Bay Area.
So next time you're at your local neighborhood pub or good beer store, be sure to ask for 21st Amendment in cans.
Because everyone likes it in a can.
Tasty crack cans.
Tasty crack can.
Okay, so my double IPA has an ABV of 7.5 and a clarity of brilliant. So that's a +8. I pour it.
Sorry, looks like she found it unpalatable.
Ha!
Shut up, Doug.
My creek gets a +10 versus girls because it's a fruit beer.
You can't open the bottle, and she walks over to the guy with the Pinot Grigio.
This sucks!
Oh, I hate it when Greg's the brewmaster.
What's this? Non-Alcoholics Anonymous?
Dude, get out of here. We're in the middle of a brew session.
Is that an actual beer?
Yeah, I crafted it. I don't really use the dice anymore. I'm a 10th level beer nerd.
Are you a 10th level beer nerd? Have you ever been called upon to explain why it's named India Pale Ale? Do you burp Y Yeast 3522 and crap Cascade? Then you're in good company at Northern Brewer. Northern Brewer has all your beer nerd needs, ingredients, equipment, and knowledge 24 hours a day at northernbrewer.com. Plus, fast, cheap shipping, only $7.99 for the contiguous USA. And check out Northern Brewer's huge selection of dorky beer kits, including the Tongue Splitter.
I've got dry hop stuck in my braces.
And the Bourbon Barrel Porter.
Now on tap in the Mos Eisley Cantina.
Make 10th level at northernbrewer.com.
Homebrewers, listen up. Have you seen Mike McDole's picture on that sweet Sam Adams six-pack? Well, it's your turn. Did you know that 2 prior long shot winners have gone on to become professional brewers themselves? It's time to enter this year's Samuel Adams Long Shot American Homebrew Contest. Jim Cook first brewed Samuel Adams Boston Lager in his kitchen using a 100-year-old recipe from his great-great-grandfather. This is your chance to have your handcrafted homebrew recipe distributed all across America. Be the next homebrewer on the Sam Adams Long Shot 6-pack. This year's contest is going on right now, and you should be a part of it. Time is running out, though. All entries must be received between April 15th and May 1st. Go to samadams.com for all the details and to register your entry, which, by the way, is free. The Samuel Adams Long Shot American Homebrew Contest. Giving back to where it all began. Enter today.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Like the Lance Armstrong of the beer world. Except for that nut thing. This is Brew Strong.
We're back. We're in the middle of our Waterganza.
Yes. Everything you never know, never wanted to know about water, but asked anyway.
Asked anyway.
You know, it sounds
Waterganza, yes. Yeah. So far in the first episode, we kind of covered why you'd want to make changes to your water, what it can do for you, kind of the components that you're concerned about in the water, and now we're kind of getting into how you make those changes, how you kind of calculate those changes, but we can't really get into the specifics because we need to know what recipe we're talking about. And in the next show, if you're listening to podcasts, it's going to be in another 2 weeks. But if you're listening live, you can hear it right after this. We're gonna get into specifics of maybe we talk John into picking a recipe from his and my book, Brewing Classic Styles, and kind of building water like Mason was asking, building water from the DI from the ground up.
RO water, yeah. Distilled.
How would I put the water together for pick a stout and pick a Helles or something. Whatever you think. Yeah, whatever, up to you, John. But I think that's a good question to ask. Yeah. And so we were talking about you were saying when you you've made your calculation of what mineral adjustment you need, what water adjustment you need, and you base that on the total volume of mash water and sparge water used to get to the volume in the kettle. Now, I make more sparge water than I could ever need, so I just don't run out, and then I just sparge until my kettle reaches a certain volume.
Right.
So
yeah, if you don't worry about mineralizing the sparge water, it makes it kind of easy because you know that your mash volume. You put in a certain water volume at a water to grist ratio of like 1.5 quarts per pound or something like that to come up with your mash. So you know exactly how much water's in there, and you can mineralize. But it doesn't matter whether you're building from RO or adding to tap water. You can mineralize to get a specific concentration that the spreadsheet or the brewing software that you're using has said to achieve to get your RA and get your mash pH right. So that's taken care of. Now you know that when you're going to sparge, and then you're going to have a certain amount of runnings from that mash plus the sparge water in to make up your kettle volume. Well, here's where you've got to estimate that about 1/2 quart per pound has been left behind in the grain. So, if you're mashing with 10 pounds of grain, that's roughly 5 quarts of water. So subtract that out, you've got, say, roughly 3 gallons of mineralized water going to your kettle. And now you're going to sparge, and you end up with, say, 7 gallons in the kettle total. So, 7 minus 3, you need to add another group of salt additions, for the additional 4 gallons of water that you've put in your kettle. And then you will be roughly at the concentration, the overall concentration you could target it.
Well, and so most of these salts you can find at your local homebrew shop, right?
Right.
They'll have some salt of magnesium and calcium and some sulfate and all these things that you would use. They even have those blends of salts, right? Burton salts.
Right.
Things like that. Would you recommend people go with like a Burton salt package and just toss in a certain amount, or should they go with the individual components? Some Epsom salt, some gypsum, some, and then
I would recommend
the
individual components, because that's how I've built up the spreadsheet and the nomograph and so on, knowing how much calcium you're adding, how much magnesium you're adding, how much sulfate you're adding.
Well, it gives you better control, right?
Right.
If your individual water is high in one aspect or another, you can make that you can reduce the amount that you're adding of that particular salt. And
it goes back to your race car, racetrack, analogy. I mean, you can't just take your favorite car and throw it in any race, or say, and
expect to win. You can do it, but the Lamborghini going on the Baja is probably not a good choice.
Yeah. So, I mean, if the brew shop has said, okay, this is a Burton salt packet, add this to distilled water, added this to 5 gallons of distilled water to get a profile that's appropriate for Burton, well, that would probably work. I mean, I don't know what that mineral profile is necessarily. I may have a little different preference, but that should work. But especially when it comes to adjusting your tap water, then you need to know what your tap water is, and you will need to add specific salts in specific amounts to come up with your final profile that you're targeting.
Well, I know our sponsor, morebeer.com, they had at one point had salts for different classic brewing centers of the world that you added to distilled water and would come up with the proper. Colin Kaminsky out of Downtown Joe's was helping them design that, I think.
Yeah. And since Colin knows his water and knows his styles, those probably work. They probably work well.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes down to brewer preference on whether you want profile A for Dortmund or you want profile B for Dortmund. That's again where the art comes into brewing.
Right. So taste is a big part of it. So you brew the beer and see how it tastes, and regardless of what the numbers tell you, if it isn't tasting exactly right, then maybe you need to tweak it one way or another, and maybe there's some component to it, like your particular recipe has more highly kiln grains versus more of the toasted grains, something like that, right?
Right.
So always a balancing act, always an art.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, how about the chat room? That's always an art in. Monitoring the chat room, Justin. What?
I thought you were talking
questions?
about my leotard with the balancing act and the art, but you meant just the chat room. Yeah, a couple of good questions from the chat. Someone says, "Hey, I just got a water cooler for my staff at work, so now I've got access to Crystal Springs water." Cheap plug there. Says, "I've looked up the water sheets online, but they don't provide the calcium and magnesium content. Where would I find commercial water info?"
Well, sometimes you can find it on the internet. Other times you'll just have to call the parent company and ask them. They'll tell them you want to use it for brewing. They'll probably provide it.
Yeah, they'll probably be saying, "Hey, great, more water sold there." You can take a sample and send it off to a lab and get that information off of that.
Okay. That's true.
But Crystal Springs probably has it, and it probably varies over time. And they may give you a range, which is okay. Again, it may not be the best water to brew with. That's that thing we're talking about. Spring water, again, may not be the best choice.
Yeah, springs in Michigan tend to be full of iron.
Okay,
all those rusting cars. Yes.
Yeah.
Here's maybe a good one for you, JZ, our resident yeast master. Does matching the yeast with the water style provide a more proper style, enhancing the flavors? To clarify, he just says, does the yeast and mineral content in the water work together to make, say, a super in-style beer? Does it make it more?
I actually think that's one of the best questions we've ever had asked from the chat, because it really kind of looks at the big picture. And we talk about brewing various styles of beer and how yeast selection impacts that, and fermentation temperature and pitching rate and oxygen and all these things. And I would say the mineral content of the water will affect that as well. Not to mention just the pH, proper pH after the mash and after the boil. That's going to affect things. It's going to affect the flavors that the yeast produce. Their ability to attenuate properly. All that, it's all intertwined. So I think that's an excellent question. Whether it's going to be more to style or not, I think, there is, in styles, there isn't just one beer that defines a style. A style is a range of beers, generally, and it doesn't really matter. You don't need to be right in the center. You'd be anywhere in that range. You'd be out kind of hanging off to the edge, as far as, too many hops or too little hops or, too dark or too light or whatever. That's fine. That's just as in style as one smack dab in the middle of that range. So don't fall into that trap of always thinking that, style needs to be exactly one thing. It's a range of things, and it's just kind of where you can group a beer together. So sorry, I kind of off on a tangent there. But what about you, John? What do you think of the impact of the mineral composition of water on fermentation, specifically yeast selection?
I think from say the calcium standpoint, it can have an effect. If you one thing I see a lot is people say, I'm going to brew a Pilsner style beer and I'm going to brew it using distilled water only. And then they'll have some trouble. They have a little bit of haze. Fermentation will be kind of sluggish. Yeah. I mean, that's why the first thing I touched on was the 50 parts per million calcium recommended minimum, is because you want to have some mineral character in there. And in the next show, I think we'll talk about styles a little bit more. But
And yeast won't flocculate without a certain minimum level of calcium in the water.
Yeah. So I think in general, water will help yeast, but stylistically, you're probably trying to put too fine a point on it.
All right, we're about out of time, but let me squeeze in one more quick question because it's a good one. You talked about where to buy salts at the homebrew shop. Someone wants to know, are all salts the same? You know, if I buy Epsom salts at the pharmacy, is that the same as buying it at my homebrew shop? What do you think, guys?
Well, there might be other kind of impurities, levels of impurities, but it's pretty close. I would say it's darn right the same. Go with support your local homebrew shop.
Yeah.
And if you can get it cheaper, really, do you need to save 50 cents on Epsom salt?
But if someone happens to be in the store, a salt is a salt.
Absolutely.
Is that what we're saying?
Plus, I know people don't have a lot of money to waste, but support those homebrew shops so they won't be around to make new homebrewers going forward.
Okay.
Yeah, I got my Epsom salts at the pharmacy.
Okay. Good. That's all from the chat.
I bought mine on a street corner from a guy in a jacket.
In the tenderloin.
In the tenderloin, exactly.
Perfect.
And that's where I get all my powdery substances to keep me brewing strong. Anyways, if you get a chance, please go by our sponsor, www.morebeer.com, and tell them you appreciate them sponsoring the Brewing Network and all the great programming that we come up with. And if you're listening live, stay tuned. The Waterganza continues. We got another hour of John Palmer talking water, and we're going to get into the details of how you comprise the water for a specific recipe.
Sunday.
Brew strong.
Brew strong, everybody.